Picture this. It's a warm summer night in 2003. You're going for a late night drive and you hear this. Such a nostalgic sound, right? But it's actually 2025 and this sound has been all over my TikTok For You page. It's making a comeback, it seems. Maybe it's because of that new Lil Tecca song. Maybe it's because people are just craving that nostalgia. Regardless, I'm going to show you the sauce for making these types of beats. The sound we're going for today is primarily produced by the Neptunes. If you don't know who the Neptunes are, they are a legendary producer duo consisting of Pharrell Williams and Chad Hugo. Just take a look of their production credits. It's literally every hit song you could think of. So that is what we're going for today. So to start out, we need to think back to a simpler time. Even though most of you motherfuckers, including myself, weren't born yet, you still got to think back and think about what did they have in the studio? You know, they didn't have all this fancy equipment. They didn't have Omnisphere and all this shit that the producers use nowadays. The Neptunes used a bunch of synths, primarily one called the Triton. And I know you and me both are too broke, too lazy, and just don't want to buy the real synth. So they actually have a free demo VST version of it, which I downloaded specifically for this video. And just scrolling through a bunch of these sounds, you can tell that like this really is that early 2000s vibe. The sounds kind of sound cheap, but in like a good way. That's kind of what we're going for here. I didn't exclusively use the Triton. I had some Analog Lab stuff and some Omnisphere stuff, just because the kind of TikTok modern version of these beats do have a little bit of a newer sound in my opinion. So I started with these Rhodes. There's a few techniques you can use to get a sound similar to this. The first thing I always do is just lay down either a basic major or minor chord. Then what you want to do is just continue to add more layers on top of it. If you add a fourth note like that, it would be called a seventh chord. And then you can even add a fifth note and there would be a ninth chord. And from there, what I like to do a lot of the time is literally just copy the chord and then transpose the chord itself rather than trying to make new ones. So some songs you could literally just go up a half step like that. So if you look at my chord progression here, I'm just going and copying the exact same chord over until the end. It just didn't sound good to me. So instead of going for a minor, I just switched it to major and then it sounded good. So that's another common thing I see in these beats is just switching over from the minor and major. So you're not really following like a key or a scale here. I'm kind of just doing my own thing. And that's kind of the key to these is that they don't follow a key. They don't follow a scale. They break the rules. They do their own thing. And that's what kind of made them so revolutionary. So what you can do, if you have a minor, you just kind of skip every other note. So the second note, the fourth note, depending on how big the chord is. And then to change it to a major, you just transpose them up one. So that's the major, then the minor. If you have an actual keyboard, this is a little shitty $50 one I got. Bonus points if you could actually play it out. That'll give it more of a human, realistic feeling, which is what the Neptunes did in all their productions, actually physically playing it out on a real synth. So we got a bit of a foundation built, but how do we make it vibey like those 2000s hit records? The key is to layer the chords on a bunch of different sounds to make it sound bigger and fuller. There's a little bit of sauce to this, so stay with me. But the first thing I did was just layer it on these strings. Then I went in the Triton and I got this synth. And now here's the most iconic part of the Neptunes production. Rather than just layering the same chord progression on a bunch of different sounds over and over again, like a modern trap beat, they add some rhythm to it. The sound I used for it was this chorus E guitar, but they mainly use the clavinet. So you could go here, this clav preset. Any of these are going to work fine. And this is probably the most iconic part of the Neptunes production, and it's found in majority of their hit songs. So with all the layers plus the rhythmic chord hits, this is what we got. A A little side note here, a lot of the more modern kind of TikTok Neptunes beats, all the Pharrell wannabes, they kind of have more of a vibey ambient sound to them. So if you want to go for that, add more pads, add a bunch more leads, stuff like that. So once again, going into the Triton, I actually laid down about 5 different lead melodies, and I only ended up using a couple of them for the final beat. So for this first section, we have 2 leads, kind of doing a call and response type of melody. That response lead was actually from Analog Lab. Then for the second section, we have a couple new sounds coming in. Another chord layer just to make it sound a little bigger and ambient, like I mentioned before. This accent pluck. Then I got this sine lead from Triton. And for all these leads, I kind of just went with the notes that were in the chords that we were using. It's a very easy way to make your lead melodies. Other than that, to fill in the high end, I added this simple string, which just uses the top notes in the chords as well. Now we're going to do the drums. It looks complicated, but it's not. For some reason, all these TikTok motherfuckers are allergic to the channel rack. So instead, they just put the drums in the playlist, which I did a little bit of here just so I could fit in and go viral. But it's very simple patterns overall. A common misconception I see is that people just add way too many percussion sounds. Like, yeah, the Neptunes like to sauce up the percussion. There's a lot of different stuff in there, but they still keep it overall like simple, bouncy, easy to listen to. When you have too many percussion elements doing way too many things, it becomes hard to listen to and hard for the artist to hop on. So I started with a very simple kick and snare pattern, kind of following the rhythm of the chords and stuff like that. Very beginner level stuff right here. I actually layered a bass. Normally in a lot of these beats, there's like groovy bass lines, stuff like that. I just kept it super simple for this one. But keep in mind, you don't have to keep it simple. Now for the percussion, just give everything its own space. So I started by adding this little bongo sound and then this little shaker sound, which each have their own pockets. Notice they're not really playing at the same time. And this open hat as well, I forgot to mention. This is what really makes it bouncy, is this sound right here. So I just kind of gave it a super bouncy, kind of like in between the beat feeling. Right here at the end of every 4 bars, we have this little thing here, which just gives it a little bit of a new sound, because we have all these 3 main perks going the whole time. Then we have this new one which comes in at the end, which just gives the listener like more dopamine pretty much, because they're like, okay, they've heard the same sounds for 3 bars, then this one comes in, it's like, oh, okay, something new. On top of that, at the end of every 8 bars, we have this sound which comes in, which is another like new dopamine at the end. To fill in all the extra space, just a super quiet hi-hat in the background. But this was honestly optional. You don't have to add that. You can just let all the percussion do its work. You don't really need like a hi-hat, like a trap beat. Now, in terms of the arrangement, there's a few things I did here. Obviously, since I'm trying to go viral on TikTok, I'm going to fucking just copy Pharrell and do like the 4-count thing. But other than that, I kind of just kept the drums the same. You know, we took out some of the sounds here and there just to change up the energy, but the melody is where I do most of the arrangement. And I'll go over what this like random section down here is in a second, because that's very important to the beat. But first off, for the most part, we just have like the main roads and chords playing the entire time, just because that's kind of the basis of the entire beat. For the hook, I have that first lead I showed you, and then for the verse, it goes into that second lead. You definitely don't want them both playing at the same time, because that's when it gets super complicated and it just sounds too messy. So give all the different leads and stuff their own pockets in the beat. That's the main advice for arrangement. I think the plucky rhythmic chords get a little annoying after a while, so I like to drop them for the verse and then bring them back in. But here's the interesting part of the arrangement. A lot of the Neptune songs had bridges. I don't know what happened to bridges. I think we should bring them back in music. But yeah, we did a little 8-bar bridge here, and usually what the Neptunes will do is they'll kind of keep the drums the same, but they'll change up the melody. They'll change up the chord progression specifically. So instead of creating a new chord progression. I got a little lazy. I just kind of pitched everything up 5, layered some of the same sounds in there. Didn't have all the leads and stuff. The only really new melody was this string. This was that same original string melody pitched up 5, but then for the second half of the 8 bars, I made a new melody, which was just double the speed, added some notes here and there, and this is what that sounds like. So that is a beat in the style of the Neptunes. Hope you enjoyed. Join the Discord, and I'll see you guys in the next one.